Oh, that's a winner right there. We're just gonna keep it like that the entire time. We're not. That's not actually gonna happen. Hello, I hope you're doing well. I am filming this a little bit later than I normally do, but I put a lot of thought into today's notes. I hope they're interesting. I hope you enjoy them. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. 4-15-20 is technically the day that you're going to be taking these notes. We're going to be discussing overpopulation. Overpopulation? All right. Here we need to know. Here we need to go. Let's go. What before we get into this, Monday's notes, I left you with the question, and the question was, do you think overpopulation is an issue? 96 of you responded, and if we look at your results, if we look at what you said, looking at the responses here, of the 96 of you, and oh my goodness, your responses were so thoughtful. They were so amazingly insightful. You considered so many different aspects. Of all of these responses, and there were some great responses, 15 of you, 15 out of 96 of you said no, overpopulation is not an issue, which means that roughly 81, it's exactly 81 of you who believe yes, this is an issue. So we're going to look at it today, and we're going to see if I can help you determine which side um, facts would back up. Okay, so we can't discuss overpopulation at all without one understanding what it is. I'm making the argument that overpopulation is having too many people in an area for that area to sustain it. So I'm trying in this case, if you were to say rabbits, okay, rabbits can reproduce quite quickly. And I know that we've talked about this with another assignment about how Australia has a huge issue with rabbits because the rabbits can produce so quickly that it's actually starving out other creatures. So, overpopulation is just this idea that if you have too many of a thing in an area for the ecosystem in that area to let those things live. That was one of the greatest sentences I've ever given. So you need to know if you're ever talking about overpopulation, the man that's going to come up, if you research it, is a man named Thomas Malthus. So Thomas Malthus was a philosopher and an economist and a scientist from the 19th century, which means the 1800s, who believed the human population would outpace the Earth's ability to support the human population. Just a reminder, if you ever see the word POP with a period, it means population. So who was this dude? Who was Thomas Malthus? He was this fellow. Hello, Thomas Malthus. And he was very, very, very famous for this graph. Here's what he's saying. He's like, this is why we're doomed as a species. People can produce this quickly. However, he said that we can only produce food this quickly, and once you get past this point, there's more people than there is food. They gon' die. They dead. That was his prediction. That's what he said happened. And because of this, Thomas Malthus said that in order to prevent this, in order to prevent these deaths, it was actually better for people not to help the poor, to help the starving, because the poor, the starving, would they would simply have more children, and then this situation right here would get it even worse. So Thomas Malthus was quite influential. I said this. He believed that it was only war, plague, disease, famine, and calamity that kept the population in check. We needed to do more to make sure that we did not run into this situation. However, he did not consider several things. I'm going to move that up. Let's move it up. So here's the deal. This was in the 1800s. Thomas Malthus said, we're doomed. There's no way we can continue to have the population grow so much. And it has. He did not consider the advancements in farming technology. He did not consider the advancements in our healthcare. He didn't understand our ability to understand what causes diseases and infections and how to prevent them, like washing your hands. So, here's the deal. I keep catching myself in the blurriest moments. If you know why that keeps pausing, feel free to comment or email me. I don't know why that just keeps pausing at random times. Okay, so here's the deal. We've got over 7 billion more people on this planet now than we did when Thomas Malthus was alive. How come? What's going on? This should hopefully look a little familiar. This is the graph from the assignment I gave you today. And the reason I have it up here is just to show you, look, there's our population. It is 7 times larger than it was when Thomas Malthus is around. There's a lot of folks that are around, and he's like, there's no way we can provide for this many people. But we can. We can. So here's some things that people may not know. Did you know that if I were to take every human being on this planet, line them up, shoulder to shoulder, I could fit them inside the city of Los Angeles in California? So, granted, it would be uncomfortable. Granted, we could not live that way. But from a purely space standpoint, we do have enough space on this planet for everybody. So here's some things I do want you to know about population. One, we have a huge population, adding about 80 million people every year, which is like adding a new Germany every year, but the growth rate is actually declining. People are having less children. So as we go forward into the future, we're actually going to have our population level out at a certain point. There are parts of the world that are saying, uh-oh, we got an issue here in that we don't have enough people. We don't have a large enough population. If we go back here, so one of the things, so here's an answer for one of the assignments. If you just look at this, if I go back in time to like the 1950s when we started tracking this, looks a lot more like a pyramid. This means you got a lot of young folks to take care of the old folks, which is good. Old folks need taken care of. Now, as we go to, say, the present day, 2020, no, that's not 2020. There's 2020. You notice not as much of a pyramid. So what's happening is we're having less young folks. We're not having as many kids, which means as we go into the future, what we're actually finding is that we need more young folks. We need more of you because of the fact that we've got so many old folks. We're going to have people that need taking care of, and older people may need more resources just to stay alive. So we're going to need more people making those resources. Going back to this, so this was, like I was saying, the space with Los Angeles. This is interesting. I want you to know this. Here's one of the things several of you mentioned, and it's very thoughtful. You mentioned food. How do we feed everybody? We actually make enough food to feed everybody. The problem is that we make enough food to feed everybody, but some of that food we feed to animals so that we can then eat those animals. So we would have to change our diet in order to make sure that we can have everybody fed. But we can do it. It just comes down to a matter of life choices, lifestyle choices. This one has to do with what I'm getting towards next, which is having to do with our resources. That's sort of important. That's the same thing we just basically said. And I'm done with you. Okay? So, where we at? Where we at? Here we are. Right here. Here's what I'm going to try and end our notes with. I'm going to try and make the argument. Let's see if I can put this back up so I can look you in the eyes. Because that's not weird. I'm looking you in the eyes. It's not weird. I'm going to make the argument that today, in the year 2020, our issue is not overpopulation. Our issue is overconsumption. We're using too many resources for sustainability. That's the issue we're facing. We only have so many resources on the planet, and our demands are infinite. So here's the thing that's actually making this more challenging. I didn't even want to do that one. That takes forever to load. I had it loaded. It's right here. So what we're looking at, let me full screen this real quick. What we're looking at here are the most extravagant houses on the planet. Now, the thing is, when we see other people, and those people are able to have places like this, it makes us want places like this. And if everybody wanted to have something like this, there just would not be enough stuff on the planet for it. It's not possible. So, what we need to do, what we need to figure out as a species, is how do we divide up all of the resources we have equitably, fairly, equally, so that we can all get enough to survive and still be happy? I don't know. Okay. I had a GIF on there. Our challenge is not necessarily overpopulation; it's overconsumption. And whenever I think of overconsumption, I think of Garfield. Garfield can eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and we as a species want more and more and more and more and more. And once we get that, then we quickly adapt to it, and then we want more, and that's difficult for our planet. One of the interesting things that I will say is an issue is that the countries that are experiencing the largest population growth are often the poorest countries, which means that they're the countries that are the least, I was going to say suitable. They are, well, okay, they're the most ill equipped to deal with the increased population growth. So if we look here, so what this is looking at is, no, that's not it. This is it. This is the one. Um, these are the countries that are making the biggest gains. And if we look at the top 10, a lot of these are countries that are not necessarily the wealthiest countries in the world, which means that those people are going to grow up seeing what the rest of the world has, wanting what the rest of the world has, but not able to get what the rest of the world has, which can lead to conflict. And that conflict can spread to the rest of the world. So this is not just something, well, oh, that's a problem for Nigeria or the Democratic Republic of Congo. That's a problem for us as a species. Ending our notes. Here's what I want to say. Settling this conflict between want and need for all who live on this planet is going to be one of the biggest challenges for you, for me, for my kids, for your kids, for our generations and the generations to come. That's the issue. To summarize, Thomas Malthus, really influential fellow who believed that we would just overproduce and then die, over-reproduce and then die. He was wrong because he didn't consider technology. We're still here. But we do need to figure out a way to be able to provide for ourselves in a way that is sustainable. That was your last notes for quarter 3. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy the notes. I hope you enjoy the videos. I do enjoy making them. As always, good night, good morning, good evening. I don't know what time you're signing on. Also, one thing I do want to say, yesterday when I did my introduction for the video, I mentioned several of you having great haircuts, and there was a few people that did respond, saying, "How did you know?" I must confess, I am a bit of a wizard. All right, rock on. Goodbye. Okay.